Today we'll be making a fun and easy to make 5 bead set, and we'll do so using the skill sets we already have in our bead making arsenal. Plus, we'll be flattening beads, and I have some tips on how to successfully recreate bead styles. So let's get to the torch. Alright, so let's start out by making a couple of spacer beads. We're gonna have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bead set, a matching set that we're gonna make. It's a brand new day. We're going to be using the kind of a darker red as the base. I want these to be small-ish, and they're going to be smaller spacer slash companion beads, along with the medium-sized companions, and then a larger focal. Screws up. It's morning time. It's not actually that early, it's like 10. It's still, and I've had 2 cups of coffee, but I'm still not quite awake. Do one more of those. That first one warm as I'm working on the second. I just want to make sure that this pair looks as though it's going to be close to the same size, and then if not, I want to make a third one so that I've got that choice, so that I know that I've got the beads that are pretty close. Just make one more just in case. One's a little bit wider than the other. You know, you can get into this once you've got some practice under your belt. I can feel how much glass is being passed. You know, I mean, it comes from experience, and it's also about the diameter of the glass rod, because the thicker the glass rod, the more glass is being sent. But like with that glass rod, that diameter, in terms of glass being sent, that felt to me like a little less than what I would normally call one pass of glass. I intentionally kept the glass from flowing, because I was trying to keep the bead on the smaller side. But if you just get into this rhythm, you can sort of feel when you've sent a certain amount of glass. And that way, if you need a bead of a certain size, you can say, okay, so that's 3 passes of glass, and that's the size of the foundation. Then when you're remaking, if you need 10 of those beads, you sit down and you're able to make 10 without having to make 20, for example, to be able to get 10 that are the same size. So it's just about kind of putting the practice in. It's kind of a formula for being able to know, to stay in control of kind of the recreation process. So I just want to add some dots. Back at the flame to drip that down so it kind of centers. Turn it towards the top. Keep those other beads warm at the same time. Same thing, top. Keep those other beads warm. All right. This is a EDP glass that's kind of, well, it's out of production now, I guess. It's kind of an interesting glass. Different hues, different shades of pink. Now, set those down. I'm going to warm up all of them. Right. And then I'm going to settle those in on the surface of the flame, heating the dots first, and immediately going over and starting on the bead to the far left because it was out of the flame longer, might get cool. And then I'll move to that center one, still keeping that right bead warm. And then now I'd like to get them all kind of flowing freely. This actually helps balance them out to each other as well. So if you're using them on the same piece, they sit more nicely together. And then come away. And that's also flame annealing it, getting it to that, getting each of those beads to a set temperature, a uniform temperature throughout the body of each of the beads, so that when it cools, they cool equally. With that special glass, what I'd like to do is let it cool that much and then come back and kind of strike it. This glass is odd. I've used it in another one of my tutorials, but it's kind of an interesting glass that if you come back to the flame after letting it cool quite a bit, it tends to kind of soften, and even it makes the glass color of the dots even a little cloudy, but in a kind of a good way. So I'll do that. That seems like it'll be all right. And I want to do that for each of the beads in the set because I want everything to be uniform. Now let's make that focal. So this is going to be the biggest bead, so I'm going to start here so I'm not too close to the end. And this will be a good opportunity to kind of show that thing I mentioned earlier about each pass of glass, because this will be a natural quantity. Each pass, come away, touch, and left to right. I always cover that start point, that point where I first made contact, because I want that to be one with the base rather than sticking out the side, making a little point. So I like those dimpled ends. So the glass rod this thick and this consistency, because colors are different, that'll be one pass. Feels about right. My hand, it's almost like my hands get a little, I could keep flowing, I could keep sending glass, but it reaches a point where I can feel that, oh yeah, you know, that's about that amount. And that way, again, for recreating beads, it's a good way to kind of have a formula, so you can say, oh, that's 3 passes, that's 4 passes. And it's pretty uniform. I mean, you know, handmade beads, not going to be exact, but obviously it's good to find some kind of a formula that you can put to use and count on as a foundation for your process. There's another pass. Do one more. All right. Left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right. Builds a wider bead instead of a taller bead. Okay. Switch to my strong hand. Surface of the flame. Oh, I work from the back sometimes too. If I'm working with my left hand, I think I work from the back of the flame. But it's always about the exterior of the bead, heating the exterior rather than directing the flame at the core, because I don't want it to just, you know, blah, melt. I want it to settle in. That also helps with bubbles. If you heat too quickly, you tend to get air bubbles. Not going to matter so much with an opaque bead, but it would certainly matter with transparency. But if you heat from the exterior in towards the core, then the process itself generally takes care of that trapped air bubble issue, which is nice. One of the reasons I like this process. So I'd like this to be a wider bagel instead of a taller bagel. So I'm going to go left to right across the surface of the flame, and that helps widen it out as well. If I stay just in the center of the flame, it tends to be taller. Always vying for that moment of, oh, okay, that's balanced and centered. I can feel it in my fingertips, so I come away in that moment without changing my movements and let that solidify into place. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is come down to my graphite pad, or if you're using that, and I want to send glass left to right. So I'm heating the exterior, but the core of the bead is relatively cool. Come down and I rotate and press at the same time. However, the glass is not molten, it's just malleable, and I'm not pressing very hard. I would prefer a number of trips back and forth to trying to do it all at once, because it's, again, you're kind of working in harmony with the process that way. You're not really forcing anything, you're requesting something, and it seems to work best, so for me anyway. So I'm rotating and pressing slightly, and then also angling my left side and right side like that, so that the glass is kind of set left to right, but also angled down a little bit. And then I want to clean up those ends. So I do so just by warming the edge a little bit and then coming over to the side of the Marver and rotating as I pull gently, and that'll give me a nice tall, sharp edge. And then we do the same thing on the other side, except I'll be rotating and pushing gently. We'll get a nice tall, sharp edges, nice dimpled ends. Everybody on the planet knows that I love those. And I'll just do one more overall pass. Okay. Now what I'd like to do, I'd like this to be the foundation for my EDP dot, a larger 4-rod dot. So I'm going to warm it, make sure that it's nice and balanced. It's not molten though. And I'm going to come away, I'm going to hold my BBQ Mashers. And notice that I release these two fingers when I press, because sometimes if you don't, you'll force the glass left and right and throw it out of balance. Okay? And a couple of things. One, so now hopefully you'll see this. There's a flash. There's that cold tool to the hot glass leaves behind what they call a chill mark, and it's like a series of circles. It's actually pretty handy if I wanted to make a small dot right in the center. The center is actually marked for me by that chill mark, so that's handy. I'm not going to do that in this case right now anyway, but the chill marks, generally what I like to do is wipe them off with the flame. So unless you're using it as a guide for a dot, you'd be coming up and kind of using the flame to wipe off the chill marks. That kind of flame anneals, but it also makes the bead a little shinier. And then this BBQ Masher, they call them, squisher. This one is a fixed height so that it can't get any. I'm going to be able to use that for each of the beads that I flatten, and they'll always be at the same height. So that's good for, it helps the jewelry, the beads sit nicely on the piece so that they're all the same height. This one, I always have two, because sometimes instead of a fixed height, I want to be able to squish it as much as I want. However, I never want to squish it so much that I create a super thin amount of glass at the top, above and below the bead hole, because that can really make for a break point. So when you squish, and when I squish, I hold it up and squish it and watch how much I'm squishing, because I don't want to create a bead that's going to break. So always leave yourself, enough room. And then flame anneal, and then kiln anneal, and that'll give you the durability. Okay. So now what we're going to do with this one is I want to do a full dot, a full rod dot. This is the same EDP. Bead itself is nice and stable, solid, not runny at all. It's a nice foundation. Just keeping it warm occasionally. I'll come around. I want it to be a nice big dot. Whoa! Ah. Okay. Drip it down. Give it to drip some, and that'll kind of help center it out. Right? And then I want to do the same thing on the other side, keeping both sides warm. Okay. And cut. Just come back to the flame to cut. Don't pull it away here, else you end up with threads laying across the body of the bead. Okay. Now, I'd like to get those, I want to warm those dots up so that they kind of drip straight down a little bit and settle into the center of that base bead. I'll let that cool some. And now I'm going to heat the dots up. I'm really not heating the body so much. I'm just really directing the heat at the tip of those dots. Kind of an equal. And then now I'm going to squish those into place. The thing about that EDP glass is you never quite know. It's kind of an organic design in the sense that you don't really know what you're going to end up with. Every time you use it differs a little bit, which I kind of like. As long as the foundation bead is true, the design itself can be interesting and different. I like that. What I want to do now is just flame anneal. Get all sides, and then come away. Let that cool for a bit. If you squish a nicely balanced and centered bead, you get a nicely balanced and centered shape. flat bead. So, you know, this idea of, you know, I say it endlessly, balanced and centered, centered and balanced, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you know, that is the foundation for everything. If you always start with a true foundation, then you're always going to end up with something that's pleasing because it's balanced and centered visually and physically. It sits well, wears well, nice dimpled ends, right? Which is great for jewelry design, all that kind of stuff. So I'll quit going on about it. Sorry, can't help myself. All right, so I want to let that cool a little bit, excuse me, and then I'm going to flame anneal it, and we'll put that one away. I want it to cool, and then come over, get that. I'm going to work high in the flame. It's like kind of like wiping it with a towel, kind of. But the towel in this case is the flame itself. Okay, and then flip over. Do the other side. It shines it up as well, and is of course annealing it. And then I want to do the edges. And then I'll do the other edge, and then I want to get underneath, and then I want to flip over and do that other side, and then I'll do across the body again. You can kind of feel in your fingertips that everything's starting to loosen. I don't want to lose the shape, but I do want everything to fully relax, because who doesn't love a nice massage, right? And that's what it is. You're relieving all that stress. So that is a flame annealed bead. So we're going to let that sit with the spacers while we make the, what else are we making? Here's an idea. So we'll do a little bit smaller companion beads. So that was 3 passes of glass. We'll do, in that first, the spacer beads were less than 1 pass each. So this will be 2 passes. So it'll be smaller than the focal, which is what we want. Also make the base not quite as wide. Touch. Always cover that start point. I'm always going left to right, left to right, left to right. I find comfort in that, to be honest. I mean, I know that I see a lot of people working with glass in you know, in tons of different ways, but building up a huge gather and then rolling it over the top or whatever, and great, works fine. But because of my history of you know, making tons of hollow core beads at the beginning of my career, working with thread is just kind of the only way I know how to do it. But I do find that it really gives me a lot of control and control over the entirety of the process. I never feel like, you know, oh, that bit scares me. The longer I work with glass, one thing I realize too is I'm working colder, I'm working cooler. Doesn't mean I'm working slower, it just means I'm working smarter, I think. Because you don't need, if everything's molten all the time, you're chasing it and it's chaotic. Whereas with this process, I really feel like I'm fully, you know, at one with the process. I'm not just in control of it, but you know, I'm working, as I keep saying, in harmony with it. And I think that's a good thing. It's the zen of glass bead making. All right, so that's enough of that. How many did I do? Uh-oh, did I do too many? Yeah, I was going on, blathering on. I wasn't even counting, I might have done 3. All right, that's fine. We'll see what happens. either way. This shape will be a little bit different because instead of expanding out on the Marver into more of a bagel shape, more of a barrel, I'll just do a flattened bagel, and that'll look nice, and next to that focal. Come away, let that settle into place. Okay, I'm going to add my EDP dots, full rod dots. Get that down, which kind of centers it, right, up to the top. That's the beginning of my grid. I can see where my dots are going to be. Did I mean to do this? I don't think I did. Wow, he's out of control. Alright, we'll see what happens. Those other dots. Now I want to take that fixed height BBQ Masher. Okay. Again, it's resting on my pinky, so it's not going to go anywhere, but I just as I squish, I let go with that. I don't want it to fall, don't drop it or whatever, but if you're holding it and squishing it, then often you'll be forcing it to be out of balance, which is not what we want, right? Now I want to wipe off those chill marks. Okay. And come away. I wonder if I should flatten the edges. Could do that. Want to? Yes, I do. Come down, press. Come down, press. And now I'm going to reheat the whole thing. Don't want to lose the shape, but I do want everything to be nicely annealed. I could even straighten up that edge a little bit. Don't have to make the noises. You're certainly welcome to do so if you're weird like I am. So that's all right, because that might sit nice next to that swished barrel. It's the focal. You know, it's got those flatter edges. I'll make another one of those, and then we'll hope for the best. All right? Cool. Just go back up. Hit the edges. Hit the sides. especially with that EDP, it kind of activates it a little bit. Isn't that cool? Da, 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 da. That might be all right. We'll find out. Oh, there's a little bit there. There's a little bit there. Now, so what was that then? 3 passes. Because I was blathering on. But that's all right. Things happen, and you go with the flow, right? Oh, oh, oh. So this is more of that medium size. So I want to make the base a little less wide than that first, or the focal. Working at one with the process. I am one with the universe. Oh. It's actually kind of cool, because on some level, that's exactly what's happening. It's once you're comfortable with the process, it just is. You come down with a coffee or wine in the evening or whatever it is, and you got some music on, and you're a creator. You're just creating, and it's this is one of the things, because in the beginning I remember feeling so like it was so chaotic, and it was mostly it was being a newbie, but it was also I was just working so hot all the time. Everything was molten, and I felt like that had to be the way, and that molten glass, that's like, it's cool, it's obviously necessary, but even that, it's better to work and use it when you need it, but don't have it use you. You know what I mean? Because it can be stressful, chaotic, chasing that, and then heating things again unnecessarily, so that you're constantly redoing work, that kind of thing. Whereas once you get the hours in, and you feel comfortable with your process, no matter what it is, right? That's the creative thing. That's the thing about that's why it's so impressive when you see people doing something that you think, whoa, geez, that's amazing. It's amazing because they had to put in so many hours to get to that point where they're doing it like that, with such ease. Michelangelo saying, I'm still learning at 80-something years old, that kind of thing. It's humbling. Do some big dots. Always working out the flame and then coming back. That's another thing. Working too much in the flame is chaotic and messy. Whereas if you work cooler, it's automatically less stressful. Up, up, up to the top. Oh. Finally, okay, to the top. And while that's settling in, I warm up the other 3. Excuse me, those dots, they get cool. So you always want to be bouncing in and out of the flame, keeping things warm. Now warm up everything kind of uniform fashion, then leave the flame. I know I've told you this before, you don't need to hear it again. But I do. I want those dots to be of an equal temperature. when I melt them in. Heating the dots first, working in the center of the flame. All he does is repeat himself. Oh well, I'm a broken record. Toot, 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 toot. Alright. Pop, 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 pop. Kind of making contact with that flame with every rotation. Twah, 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 twah. It pushes the glass left to right, just slightly. Okay, come away. Let that solidify some. Not completely, but enough so that I can switch hands or get my fixed height mashers, right? Hold it up where I can see it. Squish, release, hold. Okay. Opa. Always making a lot of noise. Okay. Now just shine those up a little bit. Remove those chill marks. I noticed some beads from India, at least they used to be, they always still had the chill marks on them. I don't know why. Maybe it's just their look. Maybe they left them there on purpose. I don't know. Alright, so I also want to flatten out those ends a little bit, right? Like last time. Okay, flip it good. Same thing. Okay. It's not so bad. Warm up everything. Flame anneal. Pop, pop, pop. Also the sides. You want all of it to be a uniform temperature. Come away, and because it's EDP, I'm going to let it cool, and then just flame anneal the surface again, because it activates it a little bit more sometimes. Okay. Wah. 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 Okay. Okay, now. That's kind of cool. I like it. I think it worked out okay. But we'll see at the end, right? We'll put them together and see what we've built. Woo! Bead set, woo, woo!